There's a patisserie near me that makes the most incredible strawberry and rhubarb tarts. They are divine, and I'm going to try and replicate it for you today. Now, I think their pastry is rough puff, so it's like puff pastry without so much work. So we're going to still do a few layers. And what makes this pastry so amazing is the amount of butter that's used. So I'm going to be using quite a lot of butter. By doing that, we're going to get this gorgeous flaky pastry to be the vehicle for our strawberries and rhubarb. So into a bowl, I've added some plain flour. To this, I want a pinch of salt, and we need 60 grams of butter. So I'm just going to measure that out. And when you're making pastry like this, cold butter is critical. I'm using unsalted butter, and we want to measure that out. So that's about 60. And we'll cut that down there, and then we want to cut this into little cubes. So the smaller the cubes are, the easier it is going to be to crumble this up at this stage. So this is the hardest stage, I guess, because you want to use your fingers to really work that butter into the flour. Now, it doesn't look like much butter at this stage, but by the time we add the water to it, it will come together nicely. So once you've got little bits of butter, pop that in, and we're going to use our fingertips, push it together with your fingers, almost squeezing that, like as if you were making the base of a crumble mixture. So work that in, and once that's worked in, I'm going to slowly add some water, and yes, again, it needs to be cold. Okay, I've incorporated all that water, and you can see we've got a nice ball of dough here. Now, every flour is different, so you may need a little more water. You will notice it, because once it comes together, that's what we're after, so a little splash more. Okay, so now time to roll this out. I'm going to do this straight on the board, a little sprinkle of extra flour, just a small amount, and we'll just knead that out. And what we're looking for is a rectangular shape, because what we're going to do is add more butter and fold it just like a book. So just using a rolling pin, use some of that flour, and we'll roll that out. Now, it's called rough puff for a reason. You don't have to be precious with it at all. It's actually quite a sturdy, beautiful pastry to work with. So we want it to be roughly the size of an A4 sheet of paper. So keep rolling that out. All right, that's pretty much what I'm after. So now for the extra butter. So I'm going to be using about 140 grams of butter. You need to use good quality butter for this, because you're going to taste the difference in your pastry. So I'm using some beautiful organic butter here, and I've frozen it. Now, the reason we freeze it is so it doesn't heat up too fast. And by grating it, we're going to get little speckles of this butter throughout the pastry, so it flakes up perfectly. So we'll take that out of the pack, and just using the coarse side of the grater, let's grate the butter. And it's quite a funny thing to see frozen butter being grated, because when you reveal it, it definitely looks like cheddar, but it's not. It's just beautiful, creamy butter. So now this goes onto our A4 sheet of pastry. I'm going to add it to 2/3 of our pastry. So sprinkle that over. We're going to fold in one side, and we're going to fold again. And by doing that, we're essentially laminating the butter throughout that pastry. So we're going to get lots of speckles. So roll that out a few times. You can almost hear that butter squishing into the pastry. It's such a wonderful thing. Turn it over and roll again. Now we're going to just fold it again like a book. So we're getting those beautiful layers of butter, pastry, butter and pastry. I'm going to roll one more time so it just comes together. And now I'm going to wrap it in some Glad wrap and into the fridge. You want to leave it in the fridge for at least 1 hour, just so that butter firms up again, and we've got a nice firm piece of pastry to roll out one more time later on. Okay, for this beautiful filling, you need 1 punnet of beautifully ripe strawberries and a few stalks of rhubarb. So in with the strawberries first into a pot, and I'm going to cook this down until it's almost a compote. Now I say almost a compote because I don't want all the berries and the rhubarb to be completely soft because it is going to cook again in the oven. So I do want it to be slightly chunky. So we'll just give them a bit of a shake. Look at those gorgeous colors, love that. And then into this, a little sugar just to accentuate the sweetness of the fruit. And don't forget rhubarb is slightly tart, so it does need that sugar. And a small splash of freshly squeezed orange juice. Another little jiggle. And then we're going to turn the heat on. We'll start with a high heat, and then once you start to hear it sizzle and bubble, we'll turn it down and let that cook down. Then you need to cool it because we don't want to be adding a hot mixture to a cold pastry. In the meantime, I'm going to bring out my pastry and get rolling again. All right, this pastry has been rolled out now. It's about 3 to 4 millimeters thick. I don't want it to be too thin because essentially it needs to hold all of that beautiful rhubarb and strawberry and some hazelnut meal. So let's cut out some discs. So I'm just using a lid. You want it to be around the 15 centimeter mark. And we're just going to use the tip of a sharp knife to go around. And I always like to place this straight onto the dish that I'm going to bake it, just to make it easier to move around. So straight onto there. And we can add some hazelnut meal. I love hazelnut, rhubarb and strawberry together, but you can absolutely use almond meal or walnut meal. And the main reason I'm doing this is because I want it to soak up any of the juices that come from the rhubarb and strawberry. Now have a look at this. It is so divine. See how it's cooked down, but there's still slight chunks in it? That's what I'm after. So please cool it down before you start assembling. You can even make it the day ahead, and then we can start filling it up. So a few spoonfuls in the center. And this is the fun part, we get to fold it over. So it's an open style tart, if you like. So we just fold it really roughly, pinching the sides, and you'll see that we're just exposing the top of that. Now it's probably going to spill out, but then it's going to caramelize. It's going to be absolutely delicious. I'm going to use a little bit of egg wash. So this is just 1 egg that I've whisked, and we're going to lightly brush our pastry all along the sides there. Kind of looks like a little flower. It's very cute. And then some demerara sugar. Now I love the chunky crispiness of it. See how the granules are quite large? That's what we're after for a bit of crunch. Okay, I'm going to make another 3 of these, and then they go into a hot oven, 200 degrees for about 30 to 40 minutes or until they're golden brown. Well, aren't these just spectacular? And this is why you want to be folding in that really cold butter. See those gorgeous layers? That's exactly what you're after when it comes to really good rough puff pastry. Now I have to say, you need to serve these quite hot because there's nothing better than a beautiful hot tart like this and cold ice cream. So some vanilla ice cream, a spoonful of that. Not too much, just a little ball of that on top. And I just love how it's going to melt in together if you've got some icing sugar, a little dust over the top. And that's what you're after. See these little puddles of ice cream melting into the cavities? This is just delicious. Give this a go at home. It is just such an outstanding pastry.